With me I have Ahmed Kray, the former Palestinian Prime Minister and a member of the Executive Committee of the Palestine Liberation Organization. He's also head of the Jerusalem Affairs Department. So thank you very much for joining us here on RT. One of the big issues at the moment is Israeli settlement expansion. Do you think that the American administration will succeed in halting it?
There's lots of tension on the Israeli and Palestinian side. Israel is not agreeing to the basic rights of the Palestinians to statehood and is continuing to implement its policies against Palestinians in the West Bank, especially in areas from before 1967. There's no doubt that the American government, if it wants to, can exert a lot of pressure on Israel, but we're not asking the US to take action against Israel or to cancel Israel's rights if there are any Israeli rights. What we're asking them to do is to push Israel in the direction of getting Palestinian rights in the West Bank and Gaza on the land of 67. I think the US has been taking action recently to put pressure on Israel and Netanyahu's government. But for there to be peace, on the one side there has to be Palestinian unity. There has to be one Palestinian decision so that the Palestinian people can support this decision. And on the other side, the Israeli government has to be a government that is ready to push its people towards peace. And I don't think the current Israeli government has the power or the will to go for peace.
The Israeli Premier, Benjamin Netanyahu, has justified his expansion building by saying that building in Jerusalem is the same as building in Tel Aviv. What is your response to this?
I
think that this is the real problem. As long as Netanyahu looks at Jerusalem as part of Israel, there won't be a resolution. This illusion that Jerusalem is part of Israel and that the Palestinians or Arabs will ever accept any resolution is unacceptable and needs to be taken away. Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, is an integral part of the Palestinian state, and it is the future capital of any Palestinian state.
You spoke about Palestinian unity. Do you see any resolution within the Palestinian Authority between Hamas and Fatah? And if yes, how?
I think yes, it's possible and it should happen. If there's a difficulty in discussions and in the talks, it's an issue that has to be resolved. There won't be any resolution to the Palestinian issue if there isn't unity between the Palestinian parties and this situation that we're currently in. The division between the West Bank and Gaza is very difficult, and I've led negotiations in Cairo, and we sat with leaders from Cairo and we spoke about all the problems, and Egypt drafted a concept paper which we in Fatah have accepted, and I think that it's very legitimate and it's a good starting point, and I hope that Hamas will sign this agreement and afterwards we can sit and discuss the details. I hope the Mideast Quartet will insist on unity between the Palestinian parties and that they will help and push for this unity rather than putting conditions which would make it almost very difficult to get an agreement.
What about Palestinian elections? Because surely the further that they are delayed, the more division is likely to creep in. Do you foresee elections anytime soon?
I don't think we can hold any elections unless there is an agreement between Fatah and Hamas. And when I mean agreement, I mean a unity between all the parties supported by the Palestinian people. Unless this happens, there will always be one party that refuses to accept the results of the elections, and they will fight any decision reached by the elections.
Economically, is it viable and realistic that the West Bank and Gaza become part of one economy in one future Palestinian state?
Look, I don't think there can be a variable economic Palestinian state until there is economic and political unity between Gaza and the West Bank and with East Jerusalem as the capital of the Palestinian state. From our experience with the Israelis so far, not one tourist that comes through Tel Aviv from Ben Gurion Airport spends a penny in East Jerusalem. Jerusalem is important from a religious and political point of view, but also economically.
Israel says it will have nothing to do with Hamas. What does this mean for any possibility of future negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians?
One of the requirements of a real peace process is unity between the West Bank and Gaza. And when I'm saying unity, it also means a political agreement. Political unity between all parties in the West Bank and Gaza, and one political decision. Israel needs to understand this. With its recent decision to deport Palestinians, it only takes us further away from any peaceful resolution. And for Palestinians, they need to understand that they need to have one political decision, one political direction, and unity between the different parties.
Do you think Hamas is sabotaging efforts for reconciliation?
I think the fact that we have different points of view is proof of a real democracy and taking decisions. The fact that we have Hamas and we have Fatah and the rest of the Palestinian political parties, this is living proof of democracy, and it's good to have disagreements also, and different points of view. Why is it considered democracy when other countries have different parties, and when Palestinians have a disagreement or different points of view, then this is not democracy? The Palestinian struggle has left different marks and different points of view, and it's affected people differently. That's why we have a lot of different opinions, but at the end of the day, if we unite under one government, then we will have agreement on the major issues, and we'll have agreement on the goal and the agenda and how to achieve the agenda.
Do you think Hamas will ever let go of Gaza?
I think this is a different issue. I don't think the question should be whether Hamas is in control of Gaza and whether the West Bank is under Fatah. I think when we get to an agreement and we sit together, the only question will be where we will go forward. And the main issue here for us is how to sit down together and how to reach unity, not who is responsible for which area and who will live where. I think what Hamas is doing in Gaza is not helping the situation. It's furthering the division between the two sides. And when you ask Hamas, they say they're doing this because Fatah and Hamas haven't reached an agreement. But what we say in Fatah is that there is the concept paper by Egypt that we have signed, and that Hamas should follow that. And that will be our starting point to negotiate and talk about unity.
What is your view on a Palestinian state with temporary borders?
Officially, we refuse this. Fatah, PA, PLO, we have all refused this. We will not accept a state with provisional borders. Now is the time for real action and for a real agreement and for a final agreement. We don't want temporary solutions for this problem anymore. The Israeli Foreign Minister, Avigdor Lieberman, once said that they should solve this problem just like they solved it in Cyprus. One side on the north, another on the south, and that's that. I don't think we will accept that. We don't want something temporary, which will create even more problems in the future.
Palestinian Prime Minister Salam Fayyad has called for unilateral statehood within 2 years. Is this something you support?
I think if there is a foolproof plan in this sense, a mechanism that will be backed by the international community as well as locally, and that the state will be created on borders from 67 from East Jerusalem as its capital, then this will be acceptable. But if it's a plan that is not well thought through, and there will be difficulties in achieving it, then I don't think this is something any of us would like to see. At this point, we don't want or need to delay any of the issues. We have to put this on the table. We will negotiate Jerusalem first. In the face of all the Israeli actions that have been taking place in settlements in Jerusalem, we have said that we will not sit at the table unless Jerusalem is discussed.
Within the Middle East Quartet, what role specifically can Russia play?
Russia is a very powerful player in international policy and is a very good friend of the Palestinian people. Moscow can be a major player in pushing the peace process forward and helping the Palestinian people to reach an agreement with the Israelis. I don't want to be pessimistic here, but the situation as we see it is not just grave, it's very dangerous.
One of the proposals on the table at the moment is a Mid-East conference in Moscow. Would that achieve anything?
No doubt. I truly believe that any conference that takes place in Russia that is well focused and well prepared will help the peace process along. You need real partners who are really interested in finding a resolution to this conflict.
Ahmed Cray, thank you very much for joining us here on RT.
Thank you.